Friday. Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to College Football Kickoff Live. Thank you for making College Football Kickoff Live your lunchtime listen every single week. That is Kenton Gibbs of Locked On ACC and Locked On Wolfpack. That is Alex Dono of Locked On Canes. Drake Toll here from Locked On Big 12. Guys, boring weekend last weekend in college football. We didn't get much around the country that mattered to us headlines-wise. What we do get this weekend is a slew of top 25 games, big matchups across the board. We'll talk a lot of Deion. We'll talk Alabama, Ole Miss. But we started off, Donna, with, to me, maybe the biggest game of this week, Notre Dame and Ohio State.
You know, this is going to present opportunities for Notre Dame specifically when it comes to trying to cement yourself into the college football playoff picture. I also think it's a massive opportunity for Sam Hartman to get a little bit more love among the Heisman Trophy contenders. I know winning would be the priority for him over an individual award, but you know, this is a guy who has had a great career at Wake Forest up to this point, but being at Wake Forest flew under the radar a little bit. Now he's hit the big time at Notre Dame, and I look at this, and I know Ohio State are road favorites in this one, but I've gone both ways throughout the week in handicapping it, but I think this is a game that Notre Dame can and probably will win if they can exploit Ohio State's offensive line and just Ohio State's offense, period. I think this is a big one. I know that in the whatever head-to-heads they've had in recent years, those have favored the Buckeyes, but this is a gigantic game, Drake and Kenton, on a list of really good ones this week on the slate.
And Kenton, same for you. I mean, when you look at the amount of top 25 games, the amount of big matchups, and teams that could be knocked out of playoff contention altogether just on Saturday alone, what do you have your eye on?
You know, it's hard to look away from this Notre Dame-Ohio State game for so many reasons. This is going to be a big game for me because my bold prediction to start the year off was what? Notre Dame was going to be closer to the playoff than Georgia. This game is either going to go a long way in making me a GOAT or making me a dunce. One or the other. I'm walking out of this thing either doing my best or putting my little pointy hat on. I'm not sure which one I got yet, but this game is going to be big time because, I mean, more or less, this is going to be a playoff eliminator for at least one of these teams.
Yeah.
As far as Ohio State goes, they could run the table after this and get in, but for Notre Dame, there's no way. Unless they absolutely dominate, and I mean crush everybody in front of them by 2 to 3 touchdowns a game, I really don't see a way for them to sneak back into the playoff conversation with a loss here, especially a loss at home, especially if it isn't like a close last-minute fluke type of thing.
Yeah. Well, guys, before we get into the Colorado conversation with Locked On Buffs host Kevin Borba, I do want to get into a bit of this whole big hit, late hit, Travis Hunter, death threats. What a wild deal this week across the landscape. Dono, where do we start with a kid who makes a hit that 30 years ago was part of the game, and today we've established, rightfully so, that shouldn't happen, and now him and his family are under huge fire?
It's sad. And listen, obviously with not only the attention that's been on Colorado, but the attention on Travis Hunter, who's been, you know, a Heisman candidate and one of the best players in the country, that's only going to make the conversation louder, because had it been a different person getting hit and a different team, I don't think anyone is, you know, making death threat, which is just inexcusable. 100%. And listen, it was an illegal hit, should have been ejected, late hit. So there should be some kind of repercussion for it. But, you know, anyone who's talking about wanting to take a young man's scholarship away, and any just awful human being who's, you know, making even if, you know, the threats are maybe not substantive, it's disgusting to make death threats towards anyone in their family, made a mistake. Like and it's a dangerous game. It's a bang game. Hit, illegal, late. It is what it is. This stuff happens. Football is a very violent game. So at a certain point, you just have to say, unfortunately, in this sport that we love so much, these things happen sometimes. We've got to move on with our lives at some point.
Isn't that what Travis Hunter said? I mean, he came out in his
and
onesie
Deion as well
on his live stream in a onesie. Ken, I don't know if you've seen these, but he does. I guess he does a live podcast every week after these games, and he said, look, football is a violent sport. It seems like Travis Hunter even is at this point has forgiven every party involved.
Absolutely. And like Dono said, grown men, kids, young teenagers, young men, doesn't matter. Death threats to anybody, whether they be 45 or 4, is ridiculous. This young man has done nothing to warrant that and deserve that. That is going too far. The scholarship thing is going too far. However, I do think that there needed to be a conversation about an ejection happening, because
100%.
so many ejections for targeting over the years where guys were literally just playing football now, and there's an ejection. And here we have a case where the ball is clearly has already hit the ground. It is not catchable by any means, and you go and light a dude up. I think that there is a very good conversation to be had there about ejections, but all of this extra stuff beyond football, what are we doing? At the end of the day, this is a multi-billion-dollar game. Not going to deny that. This is a game that some of us have spent too many dollars and much too much time on FanDuel about.
And toes.
You know, and not just the folks who the bookie had to come to their door. Hey, pay up, buddy. Some of us have given up toes voluntarily for this thing. But it's a children's game at the end of it. Like, let's stop this. Your job isn't going to stop. Your bills aren't going to stop being due. Your car note, mortgage, rent is not going to stop being due because Blackburn didn't take the hit on Travis Hunter. So because he did, you shouldn't do anything to put all that stuff in jeopardy as well. Come on, knock it off. Grow up.
I think what Kenton Gibbs is saying is touch grass. Kind of a really good way to just touch grass, guys. It's again a kid's game. Kenton, you hit it, and I want to know Kevin Borba's thoughts on this. He's got a big game this week. That's Locked On Buffs between Oregon and Colorado. We'll talk all of that as Kevin Borba joins the show. Borba is back with the best haircut in the Locked On College podcast family of channels. Borba, Travis Hunter takes a cheap shot. He's out for a few weeks now. Obviously, he's a key cog, especially going into a big game like Oregon. What do you make really of this entire situation?
Yeah, I think the hit in general, like you guys were talking about, I think it sucked to happen. It wasn't necessary. Honestly, he could have intercepted the pass if he was actually playing the ball, but he chose to hit Travis. Not to defend the hit, but I think it was just kind of one of those rivalry things where it was like, I'm going to hit Travis Hunter right now, send a message. Don't think he meant to hurt him. Don't think he deserves death threats, and probably should have made a play on the ball rather than doing that. But with the game itself, losing Travis hurts the defense way more than it hurts the offense. It's not to say that he's not helpful on offense. It's just on offense, they have 3 or 4 wide receivers that have been making plays for them. Jimmy Horn and Xavier Weaver have been electric. They're like 1 and 3 in the country in catches. So they're going to be okay on offense. It's the defense where I'd be worried. They have a couple guys banged up. They have guys that came in and didn't play as well as you would hope when Travis went down. So they're going to have a committee of guys to try to fill in for Travis, and it's going to be interesting.
You know, one of the things that has been a revolving theme here, which I wholeheartedly agree with, is last week's game, you go into it with the respectability politics of take your hat and your glasses off when you're talking to an adult, and then by a team who has 10 personal fouls in the game. What do you make of that? Because I'm a firm believer in everything that you see on the field is coached or allowed. And I personally am under the mindset that Jay Norvell did a terrible job of coaching or allowing that in that game. But what say you on?
Yeah, I think the whole Jay Norvell thing is kind of corny. I don't know why he felt the need to call out Coach Prime and his son. I don't think I've seen many pictures of Coach Prime without sunglasses. Like, you Google him, and even in college, when he got drafted, he had the sunglasses and the Jerry curl. Like, he's always had sunglasses. Ever since he's been to Colorado, he's had a cowboy hat now. That's kind of his new thing. And so it just felt like a reach. It felt like a cry for attention. As the only child myself, I'm well aware of what a cry for attention is. But like, it just wasn't necessary. And so I think when you talk about the penalties and stuff, I think it was just them kind of being on a stage that they weren't expecting or ready for. So I think they kind of just weren't prepared for. And so, like you said, it kind of is on Jay Norvell to prepare them for that moment. And they obviously were more worried about the environment than the game itself. I think that's the best way to put it, just because if you allow that to happen in a game that's kind of your Super Bowl, then you're going to take yourself out of the game, because realistically they should have won the game. They were up by 11 points They allowed a 98-yard drive with a minute and a half left, and that's kind of on you. So a lot of discipline issues over there in Fort Collins.
Borba, I'd love your perspective on all the buzz around Colorado football, because you're closer to the program than the rest of us. But at the same time, Coach Prime and Colorado have been arguably the biggest story in sports the last few weeks. All the ESPN shows and the debate shows, they tend to lead off on Coach Prime every single day. And, it's interesting to me as a Miami guy, seeing all, the Miami alums on the Colorado sidelines. I mean, can you get some of your guys? Can you get Mason Crosby and like Bobby Pesavento and Eric Bieniemy out at some games? But it's like, this is such a big story, Colorado football. It seems to be kind of transcending the sports world right now.
Yeah, and they've had Michael Westbrook out there and guys like that too. So they've had some guys because they made sure to talk about the past culture and stuff like that. But no, I've been saying that I think Colorado's at the forefront of college football and just sports in general, excuse me. And I also think that this is the most popular college football has ever been. If you look at it throughout history, I think maybe USC with Reggie Bush was the pinnacle, maybe Miami when they were winning. But I've been saying this. I have people in my family, my girlfriend's family, people I haven't talked to since high school reaching out to me because they know I cover Colorado for Locked On and Athlon. And they're like, what is this about Deion Sanders? Like, why is he so popular? Like, I have random people I don't talk to asking me about Colorado football. And it's like the popularity of college football is at an all-time high because of him. They got 9 million viewers for a game against Colorado State where they were favored by 20. Or even the week prior, they were Texas, Alabama got 8.8. So more people cared about Colorado State than they did Texas, Alabama. And that was a top 15 matchup. So he's kind of changed college football. He's making it cool. On the sidelines, they had Offset, they had The Rock, they had Master P was there. Chauncey Billups and Kyle Lowry were there, which might have been tampering. I don't know. But they were there in the box. Like, there were so many famous people. It'd probably be easier to name who wasn't there. It's just because they're so interested in what he's doing.
Orba, when we look at Oregon this week, this Ducks team, 21-point favorites, and we've talked about that. Bo Nix. Is there a way? I mean, I told you there's no way TCU and Colorado is a game. I thought that this would be a blowout. The Horned Frogs would take it away in a landslide. And now this week, a lot of the talking heads are saying the same thing. Where do you sit with Oregon?
Yeah, I think it's a very big possibility for Colorado to win. I think it's a situation they love to be in. They've kind of embraced the us versus the world role. And I think they kind of find it hilarious that they're 21-point underdogs. I don't know if that's going to work out for them, but I personally have predicted them to win. So I'll just put that out there. I think offensively, they could keep up with anybody in the country. And I'll say this because I see some looks, and it's like defense can win championships, sure, but offense wins you a lot of games. And realistically, they're like USC's defense last year. USC's defense last year was terrible, but they led the country in interceptions or turnovers forced. Colorado leads the country in turnovers forced. So if they could get one or two off of Bo Nix or maybe force a fumble, that's game-changing right there. And can Bo Nix and the Oregon Ducks keep up with their offense? Because they were kind of getting sliced and diced by Tyler Shuck and the Texas Tech Red Raiders, who have lost to Wyoming. Mm-hmm. And Wyoming's a good team, no offense to them, but Texas Tech wasn't the team we thought they'd be. And so I think there's a lot of credit being given to Oregon, which they deserve, but I also think there's a lot of discrediting of what Colorado's done so far.
Dan Lanning said when he found out that Colorado was going to the Big 12, what if they won? That makes their exit important. Right. And I believe I don't know too much about Coach Prime. I ain't gonna pretend to know everything about him, but I believe that he made the game what?
Personal.
Yeah. Personal.
It's
personal, baby.
He did.
It's personal. Do you believe in this Buffs team to pull this one off? In your prediction, I know it's going to be biased. I don't care. I want to hear it from Board, but do you believe that this Buffs team pulls off the upset?
It's not biased. It's just honestly watching this team play. It's like they always find a way. Shedeur Sanders reminds me of Bryce Young from last year, where when he has the ball, I'm like, he's probably going to score right now. Like he just has that vibe to him. Yeah. And then the thing about Dan Lanning is like, what he said, was it wrong? No. Like, has Colorado done anything? No. But would I have said it with Deion Sanders and like his cult like following that kind of turn literally everything into something? No, I wouldn't, because now Oregon has a bigger target on their back. I think they already had a target on their back, and I think Colorado could win. It's kind of like the same situation we've been dealing with this whole time, and so I'm just going on the other side now because I've doubted them twice now. So I'm like, I'm just gonna flip the script and be like, you know what, I think they could win because offensively they have stars. Defensively, they could force turnovers, and while they can't really stop people, if you get a pick or a pick six like they did last week, that could be a game changer. And then their coaching staff are phenomenal at in-game adjustments for the most part. Their offensive coordinator we've seen him twice be silenced for a quarter and then put up like 400 yards of offense in the ensuing 3 quarters. And then defensively, they need a lot of work there, but I think they're getting more guys back from injury, and so that'll help as well. More transfers to learn, guys.
Kevin Borba, your team is undefeated and a contender and has the biggest game of the week. Thanks for joining Locked On College Football Kickoff Live.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, fellas, let's take a trip around college football to our contenders for the college football playoff like we do every week. But first, Dono.
Well, first, we have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. You're a small business owner. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. You add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Folks, people will see it. I've gotten jobs through LinkedIn Jobs before. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Guys, through now a few weeks, the public has eliminated Alabama, Tennessee, and Clemson from the college football playoff picture. But who is still in that picture, at least for now? The Notre Dame Fighting Irish can be in the mix. The road to the college football playoff begins tomorrow as they face Ohio State and the Buckeyes. What is the path to the playoff, with or without a win for the Irish this week? It's time for this week's Playoff Hopeful. Woj joins Locked On College Football Kickoff Live. Our Woj, that is, Tyler Wojak of Locked On Irish. Tyler, this Notre Dame team's got Ohio State coming up on Saturday, and more importantly, playoffs in its sights. Can this Notre Dame squad, regardless of the outcome on Saturday, make the college football playoff?
Well, their schedule does set them up to make the playoff, even if they do end up losing to Ohio State, because they still have USC just 3 weeks after that, who I fully expect will be a top 5 team at the time that game is played. Not to mention Clemson later on in the year. I know that Clemson right now, stock isn't too high on them. But if they turn things around and Notre Dame goes 11-1 with a loss to Ohio State, then yeah, I think they're definitely capable of being a playoff team. And I haven't even mentioned the possibility that they beat Ohio State. And I think that's definitely a possibility as well. And if they do end up beating the Buckeyes on Saturday, the path is clear for them. At that point, they would probably shoot up the rankings, be close to the top 5, maybe even in the top 5 if they're able to pull off the upset at home on Saturday. But they've got the quarterback. They've got a bunch of talent around him. So I think they're definitely capable. We're just going to find out just how good this Notre Dame team is on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern.
Well, as you said, find out. That's your word here, because you've got the wins against Central Michigan, Tennessee State. Who cares? The NC State game on the road, not only does Notre Dame win, they also cover. Have you seen enough in these 3 games to say squarely, oh, yeah, this team is going to beat Ohio State, or this team is a playoff caliber squad?
I think they are a playoff caliber squad, but I won't know for sure until Saturday because there's still some questions. I think they're Ohio State is a really good team. They're a flawed team. They might not be as talented as they've been in recent years, and that's due in large part to the fact that they don't have a current first-round draft pick at quarterback like we've become to expect out of them. They've had C.J. Stroud and they had Justin Fields, and Kyle McCord might end up being a really, really talented college quarterback. We just haven't really seen it yet. This is going to be his 4th start. Meanwhile, Sam Hartman is going to be starting his 50th game on Saturday. So it's kind of hard to tell, but I think we're going to learn a lot. I'm more interested to see what Notre Dame's defense really is. Again, they've been playing some really inferior opponents up to this point, but when you're going up against Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka and Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams, like, who cares who the quarterback is at that point?
No.
Those guys are going to make some plays, and you're going to have to be ready to go on Saturday.
Let's go there. Quarterback play, Woj. When it comes to Sam Hartman, who might be the best quarterback in America, that's a tough thing to argue. He very well could be in New York, should be in New York at the end of the year. Does this team go as he goes? Is it Sam Hartman or bust for this team's playoff hopes?
No doubt. And we're kind of in uncharted territory as Notre Dame fans, or at least a space we haven't been in a long time, where the quarterback is carrying the team. Notre Dame has had some really good teams over the past decade plus. 2020, they went undefeated in the regular season. 2018, they did as well. Both seasons, they had Ian Book as their starting quarterback. And look, I love Ian Book. He's a gamer, all-time winningest quarterback in Notre Dame history. But they weren't winning games the majority of the time because of Ian Book, whereas now they're winning games because of Sam Hartman. He elevates everyone on the offense, and I would say the entire team. Like, I feel like the defense plays differently. The coaching staff is a lot more aggressive. There was a period where they went 3 straight weeks converting on 2-minute drills at the end of the first half. They haven't had to do it at the end of the game yet because they've had such big leads in all of these wins. But you could see Marcus Freeman using his timeouts at the end of the first half when the defense is still on the field because he wants the ball back to give Sam Hartman a chance to drive down the field. And every time he's had a chance to do that at the end of the half, he has. So he really elevates everyone around him. And it's really exciting to see because I feel like most of the time when Notre Dame has made it to the playoff, they were missing that one key piece, and that's the quarterback. And they're not missing it anymore.
Taking Sam Hartman out of the equation, though I know we just said we can't. Who is it that America doesn't know that's going to be the secret tool for Notre Dame's success down the road?
On Saturday, I'm going to say Benjamin Morrison, the cornerback, and he's going to be probably under the biggest spotlight because he's going up against Ohio State's wide receiving core, and I would say they are probably at the top, at least for sure, the best wide receiver room in college football. USC could make a case that they're a little bit deeper. They go like 8 or 9 wide receivers deep, and that's certainly true. They have a stacked receiver room as well. But when you're going up against Harrison Jr. and Egbuka, like, those guys are so good. But I think Benjamin Morrison is a future first-round draft pick at quarterback. At Notre Dame, we don't get a whole lot of those. Right. So he's going to have a great chance to prove why he's so good. Last year, he sort of burst on the scene in that Clemson game when Notre Dame upset. I think Clemson was ranked 4th at the time in Notre Dame Stadium. Benjamin Morrison had 2 interceptions, one of which was returned for a touchdown. He was a freshman All-American. This year, a lot of expectations for him in the Notre Dame fan base, and now he's going to have to. He has the chance to prove it in front of the whole world on Saturday.
Woj, thanks for joining the show today.
Of course, man. Anytime.
That was Tyler Woj of Locked On Irish, guys. To you, Kenton, any shot that Notre Dame makes the cut? We always talk about it. Oh, this is Notre Dame's year. They kind of have that Texas moxie to them. Do you think this is actually it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They don't just have a shot. There's a path. There's a very direct path for them. If you think about what they have going forward, I love the fact that we completely skipped over the fact that there's a Duke team that may be in the top 15 next week. That Notre Dame goes to Durham to play. They're going on the road to Wallace Wade Stadium, which I'm going to tell you, I was there firsthand for the Duke and Clemson game. That stadium, while it was a road game for Clemson, was not very loud. It was not very ruckus. It wasn't the type of environment that you think of. But
tell me, Duke football wasn't a party?
But it's still a road win if they can get it. If they can get it. And then you look at the USC game. You're looking at a USC team that could easily walk in top 2 or 3 in the country, undefeated, all the things that cannot play defense still. And so you're looking at a situation with Notre Dame where even if we count this game as a loss, you're saying that there's a path here. So if they win this game, I mean, they're all but a shoe-in at that point. But a loss here, I think that they'll be just fine. They just got to take care of what's in front of them.
Dono, buy or sell Notre Dame?
Buy, which as a Miami guy, pains me to say that because the history runs pretty deep there. And, as far as their path to the playoff, I agree with Kenton completely because not only does Notre Dame have the high-profile type of schedule where they could potentially be top 4 even if they lose one game, and if it's not Ohio State, who I think they will beat on Saturday, USC, you can take your pick on who they might lose to this year. They can still get in because they're also one of the most visible programs in the country when it comes to television exposure. That plays in Notre Dame's favor. And this game is a huge opportunity for them against Ohio State because even though, Notre Dame has had a couple of cameos in recent years in the college football playoff, they haven't had success the way Ohio State has. That's been in their DNA. They've been one of the more consistently successful teams in the CFP era. They've also consistently had first-round quarterbacks, and they maybe don't have one of those this year to the Buckeyes, but still, Notre Dame is kind of fighting against their DNA this week, but I think they have the quarterback because I'm taking Hartman over McCord. And I also think Notre Dame is going to have an advantage, like Kenton talked about, being in their home stadium. That's a tough road game. And McCord's first road trip against Indiana didn't go all that smoothly for him. No. So I think the Fighting Irish can pull it off. Obviously, matching up against Ohio State's just revolving door of future first-round wide receivers is going to be the most difficult matchup here. But I think they can put pressure against Ohio State's offensive line. I don't necessarily think this is going to be a beautiful, high-scoring type of game, but I think it's going to be a Notre Dame dub. 3-point underdogs at home. I think they cover and win.
Let's take it from ACC adjacent to the actual ACC. What was thought to be a potential top 10 matchup this preseason is now a battle between number 4 Florida State and unranked, unknown Clemson. We kick to Brian Smith of Locked On Seminoles to preview this matchup.
There are 3 prime reasons that Florida State should defeat Clemson. Number 1, quarterback experience. While Cade Klubnik is a very talented young man, Jordan Travis is a graduate student. He's been there. He's done that. And don't forget about his legs. He can make a play in the clutch, even if a pass is not there. When it is available, Johnny Wilson, that's a really great option. He's averaging 20 yards of reception, and his 6'7" frame is very attractive. And, of course, there's Keon Coleman. LSU knows all too well about him. Finally, can Clemson protect Cade Klubnik? They've been giving up a lot of pressures, and while he's not been sacked a lot, if he's under duress from Jared Verse and the Noles, that's not going to bode well. Florida State overall just has more talent than Clemson. They have more experience, and I think they're up to the task. Florida State gets it done 35-24 in Death Valley.
That is a double-digit pick from Brian. Clemson over Florida State. What I do like about this game that bodes well, Dono, for Clemson is that it's 11 a.m. I mean, or bodes well for Florida State, I should say, is 11 a.m. I mean, this is not a night road test. I mean, yeah, it's just not all of college football is looking at this. It hasn't become the marquee matchup that it was supposed to be, and to me, that almost helps Florida State just roll in a game that they are certainly expected to win.
Well, I don't think Clemson has been a home underdog since the George W. Bush administration. And
I wasn't even alive for that, Dono.
And they've also,
oh my gosh.
And they also hold, I think, 7 consecutive wins head-to-head against Florida State. But Clemson's not winning this game. Florida State are the rightful road favorites here. I just don't see Clemson being able to score enough to hang with them. And I thought that Brian hit the nail on the head when he talked about the talent discrepancy a couple years ago. You didn't think you'd be saying that, against Clemson with a talent discrepancy, but they haven't adapted to the transfer portal. Dabo hasn't the way that Mike Norvell clearly has. They've had a good mix at FSU of organic recruiting, but really just a boost when it comes to what they've done in the transfer portal. And, people may have reservations about Florida State. I like to buy low on teams because, yes, they labored to beat Boston College on the road last week. But a couple things on that, guys. When you've got Clemson the following weekend on the road, that BC game, it can be a look-ahead game, and it's also really tough to win at Boston College, especially for the annual red bandana game, which is what Florida State was going up against. So they survived their letdown game last week. This is not going to be a letdown game for Keon Coleman and for Johnny Wilson. And obviously something I'm looking for is Jordan Travis 100% healthy? Because he did get banged up and missed a couple of series with a shoulder last week. He's going to start, but is he limited in any way, shape, or form? We'll find out. But I think Florida State wins this game comfortably.
Yeah, when I look at the Boston College game you mentioned, it seems like every big team has that one game on their schedule. Georgia, Missouri last year, where Georgia just escapes Columbia with a win against a middling Missouri team. Kenton, for you, when I look at this, I think, all right, yeah, Florida State wins for sure. They cover 2. Did they win by double digits, though? That's where I think I hang up.
Yeah, I agree. The hang up is right there. I don't think that this Florida State team knows how to get it done that well. with all due respect, if
What about the
Brian
LSU
Kelly-
game? Hold
if
on.
Brian-
here.
and let me
Yeah.
finish that out now. If Brian Kelly did not piss down his leg in a way that I have never seen from a head coach that's getting paid millions of dollars, my brother in Christ, you have a receiver that is giving the fade signal back to back to back on your corner, and he's dunking on him. It's not like he's giving the fade ball and it's incompletion. He is completing these passes, and you stay in single high coverage for what reason, Mr. Kelly? Please, I elaborate. They're not running the ball well, and you say, it's okay. We need the extra body down there. We're not going too high. That just is too much like right. So with that being said, I think that their talent carries them most of the way. But honestly and truly, I think that Dabo is the better coach, and he finds a way to get this thing close. I'm not saying that they win this game. I don't think Clemson wins. But I think they find a way to keep this one close against a much more talented Florida State team that, you talk about the portal. All of their stars are darn near all of them, except I believe the backs are all out of the portal. Everybody. Yeah. And so that's, you talk about the future is now old man mentality. That's got to be how Norvell is looking at Dabo. Hey, buddy, you get with the times or you get rolled over, and they're going to get rolled over in this one.
Well, Dabo will always appreciate your thoughts and prayers. He's going to need a couple of extra this week as Clemson takes on Florida State. Coming up next, we take you around the conferences, the power conferences in college football, as we talk all of the biggest games in a big weekend. But first, let's bet on those games. What do you say, Dono?
Oh, I'm down for that task. Guys, FanDuel, we are having so much fun each and every week. You can snap into this NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on that action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, which are so much fun, over-unders, and so much more, and got a lot of good action this weekend. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Well, guys, this is the week we've been waiting for. It is finally conference season and so many big games to kick that off. And ranked versus ranked as well. How do we keep up? We go around the country. In part one of our Conference Confidential, kicking us off, as always, is Craig Sheeman from Locked On Big Ten.
There is no bigger game across the country than Ohio State at Notre Dame. This one has playoff implications. It's under the lights in South Bend Saturday night. It's on NBC. The whole country's going to be watching. Plus, the Buckeyes offense just finally woke up a couple of weekends ago. But you know what? The defense has allowed the fewest points through 3 games since 1975. This is generational stuff. Meanwhile, Notre Dame is led by quarterback Sam Hartman. He's the real deal. 13 touchdowns, no interceptions so far this year. And you want to get the remote control out because while that game's going on NBC, on CBS at the same time, we're going to white out at Penn State as they host a very stingy Iowa Hawkeye team in a battle of undefeated top 25s. Another battle of unbeaten square off in Ann Arbor Saturday afternoon as Rutgers visits Michigan. This will be Jim Harbaugh's first game on the sidelines following his 3-game suspension. And tonight, it's Friday Night Lights in the Big Ten as Wisconsin travels to West Lafayette to take on Purdue on FS1. Both of these teams are supposed to have this new air raid attack offense. Let me tell you something. Badger quarterback Tanner Mordecai, that's not what he's about. That's not what Wisconsin does. They still have their traditionally strong running game. They should use it. Meanwhile, I'm very intrigued by the arm talent of Texas transfer and Purdue quarterback Hudson Card. I think he's something to watch as the season goes on. He's very good. Season's a third over. I'm sad, but it feels like it's just getting going. Enjoy the games. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten.
Week 4 in the Pac-12 is loaded with a trio of top 25 matchups, and Colorado is not the biggest one, though it certainly is an exciting one. Spencer McLaughlin here for Locked On Pac-12. Oregon State and Washington State are playing what some are dubbing the first ever Pac-2 championship game in Pullman this week, a battle of top 25 undefeated football teams to begin conference play, a tone setter really for both of them. Oregon State looking to solidify their case as a Pac-12 contender, Washington State looking to squarely put themselves into that discussion. And make no mistake about it, a win over Oregon State would do just that. The Beavers are a good football team, and the Cougs at home in front of what should be a rockin' Martin Stadium are going to do their best to get that win, go to 4-0, move up the rankings, and get their highest rankings since 2008. If they are moved up the way that they should be, if they're able to win the football game. Colorado travels to Oregon. They're 21-point underdogs. Where have we seen that before? It always makes it interesting, and it always is with Coach Prime. UCLA also travels to Utah to take on the Utes. Looks like Cam Rising might play for the first time in 2023. But for Oregon State and Washington State, it's about which quarterback plays better, Cam Ward or DJ Uiagalelei. Both guys at their peak are really good quarterbacks who are productive and lead their offenses in a really, really solid fashion. But at their worst, they're guys who are completing a low percentage of passes and turning the football over, putting it in harm's way, and that can really stifle things offensively. I think Cam Ward has to play better than DJ Uiagalelei in this game for the Cougars to get the win, because I trust Oregon State's run game more than Washington State's. But this is a battle of two solid defenses who are going to be playing a game that feels like it's about more than just football, and that's because it is. 3 top 25 matchups, 6 games overall this week in the Pac-12. Going to be really, really fun to see how things shake out.
What's up, everybody? Chris Gordy here from Locked On SEC Week 4, and we've got some juicy matchups in the SEC. First up, it's 3-0 Auburn at 2-1 Texas A&M. Big early road test for Hugh Freeze and company, but I think this is a must-win for Jimbo Fisher and crew. You can't lose to a new head coach. You already have a loss on the young season. I like A&M at home to cover the 8 points. I like Spencer Rattler in South Carolina to cover the 6 points at home against Mississippi State. I like LSU to beat Arkansas at home, but not to cover the 17.5 points. That's too many. And the big one, it's Ole Miss at Alabama. It's Luke Skywalker versus Obi-Wan Kenobi, but Obi-Wan's team is struggling. Alabama going back to Jalen Milroe at quarterback, not looking great. Bama only a 6.5 point favorite. But with all Lane Kiffin has going for him, Jackson Dart playing extremely well, Pete Golding running that defense. If Kiffin can't beat Saban here, he may never get it done. Give me Ole Miss and the points and the Rebels in the upset of the Evil Empire, Alabama. For more, check us out at Locked On SEC.
Wow, Gordy wearing a Joe Burrow shirt with pride this week. Tell him what it is, Chris Gordy. Guys, plenty of huge games to talk about in college football, but I want to hone in on some individual programs now with our boom and bust this week. Kenton Gibbs, we will start with you. Who is your boom team as of Friday, September 22nd?
Well, I love to say this. I've been waiting on this team, and I say this with great joy and great happiness in my heart. I'm not going to lie to you and try to pretend at all that I'm holding back any of the glee that I contain for this team being good. I am ready. I have wanted to do this for some time. Penn State is my boom team. And they're my boom team. They are going to look like the real deal. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is a team that is so complete. They play offense in the Big Ten. You heard it. You heard it right. Their name is not Ohio State, and they play offense in the Big Ten. Geez. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm elated. And, of course, I'm elated because on defense, they got a couple Cass Tech graduates over there, the King Twins, doing their thing. I'm always excited to big up my boys from the Creed and why I love it. But with that being said, this is a really, really good Penn State team, a really complete team. They are solid in the trenches on both sides up front. They have good depth at the second level as well, multiple good backs, multiple good backers, and, of course, one of the best corners in the game in Kobe King. And you look at their wide receivers, and they finally have a 5-star quarterback. It's crazy. What can you do with an offense in the Big Ten? They can get it done. They can get it done.
467 yards per game offensively for Penn State. The bad news is they play Iowa this week. So if you have a paint drying competition in your local area, you could probably buy tickets to that for cheaper and enjoy it much more. Dono, boom.
I'm going to give you a curveball. This is a team that to this point has been busting, but I think they're going to boom this weekend and pick up a big win. That's the Alabama Crimson Tide.
What?
I don't see them losing. I don't see them losing 2 straight at Bryant-Denny Stadium. and I think they're going to have success on the ground this week. Ole Miss, below average rushing defense to this point. Saban is going back with Jalen Milroe, which obviously he's not instilled a huge amount of confidence, but at least Saban has figured out this is the best guy we've got. They're handing him the keys to the car again. And I'm telling you, Alabama is going to win this game. And for at least 1 week, they're going to silence some of their doubters because I think Ole Miss is going to be vulnerable. So they haven't been booming to this point. They put up 17 points against USF. They lost by 10 to Texas at home. But I think this is the week that Bama starts to figure things out, and they're going to boom this week.
Dono just said they put up 17 points against USF and lost to Texas, and they're my boom this week with confidence.
They're going to boom. They're going to boom, Drake. They haven't been booming. They're going to boom this week.
This is a sneaky boom for Alex Dono with Alabama. Mine, guys, same thing. I've been waiting for this team to kind of get the marquee win. Can they prove against a good squad that they're a legitimate force in college football? They went on the road in the SEC and got a night win, coming back twice from multi-score deficits. It's the BYU Cougars. They have been a massive boom in a Big 12. It's been a massive bust. This conference has not been good. BYU has been good. The big reason why Keaton Slovis is not USC Keaton Slovis. He's not Pitt Keaton Slovis. He is BYU Keaton Slovis. He has fit the offense perfectly. While some of the throws he makes, you think, aha, that's Keaton Slovis. Other throws he makes, you think, hey, that's Keaton Slovis. Makes sense, guys. You've seen him in the ACC. He has done really well for BYU. Their defense has stepped up in an insane way. Only allowed 16 points in the first 2 weeks against Cupcake, so they took care of business. 31 to Arkansas, but they got enough. They got it done against KJ Jefferson, one of the most electric quarterbacks in the country. Road win, SEC, big time for the Big 12. BYU is a boom. Now the bus. We'll pitch it back to you, Dono. Who busts this week for you?
Oh, my goodness. Colorado is going to bust this week, guys.
Deion's watching right now, by the way, Dono. Deion's watching.
Personal because of Dono.
I waited for Borba to be out of the studio. Colorado is going to bust this week. Oregon is going to handle them at the line of scrimmage. And, Borba talked about it being without Travis Hunter. That's definitely going to hurt them more on defense since it's going to hurt them on offense, but it's going to take away their best cover guy. And, Deion talked about cornerback by committee this week. They've got a 5-star true freshman in Cormani McLean who, cares more about his social media than actually getting better and developing. So I don't think we're going to see much, if at all, this week. Okay. Everyone went crazy about Colorado. I see like Michael Irvin is doing a social media post where he's like crying tears of joy because they beat a team in double overtime that lost to Washington State by 26 points in their previous game. Oregon is going to boom this week, which means Colorado is going to bust.
All right, Kenton, who's your bust right now?
Dono, he was crying because it was 2 a.m. We were all ready to go to bed. We were so happy that
it was a miracle.
Over.
I was still awake. I usually go to bed at like 10 o'clock, and they talk. That game set like a ratings record for the late game time slot. I was even up. Well, I stayed up like 4 hours past my bedtime to watch that.
Listen, I wake up at 4:30 most mornings. I was crying when that game was over. I was right there with my going, thank you, Lord, this thing is over. But I struggled to come up with a bust team because there actually were 2 that I wanted to go with. And then I thought to myself, you're a rule breaker anyway, so we're going to go with 2. I've already talked about both of the teams that are playing these teams have already been talked about. Iowa, I don't know why anybody would rank that team. I don't know.
What's better, Kenton, is they are undefeated and just haven't moved in the rankings. They started at 25. They keep winning games. People are like, all right, 25 it is.
Cade McNamara has looked mid at best. And I mean, like, in the Midwest, outside of Detroit, of course, the wonderful bastion of a society that we have there, there's some really bad food, like Skyline Chili and whatnot. Things like that, mid, right?
Okay.
Iowa's offense, worse than that, which means Iowa as a team must be mid. But let's go over to a guy that I've talked about on some other shows, that I've talked about. In the words of Jay-Z, I don't believe you. You need more people. Mr. Bo Nix, I don't believe you, brother. I don't believe him. I don't believe him. I don't think he's a good player. I'm sorry. I'm going to sit on that. I'm going to stand on that. I'm going to jump on that 10 toes down. As a matter of fact, give me your toe that you cut off, Drake, so I go 11 toes down. I don't believe in Oregon because I don't believe in Bo Nix. Dan Lannon made it personal. I think that Colorado pulls off the upset. 2 bus teams for you right there.
And we went completely opposite on that one too. This
Absolutely.
is great. This is Dono versus Gibbs this weekend.
Absolutely.
I don't even know what to do with this now. I feel like the middleman here. I can give you my bus though, and it's wish that I was on old Rocky Top. Those guys suck right now.
do.
I don't know if you've been watching this Tennessee team, but they were supposed to be good, and they were like, "Hey guys, just kidding. We wanted you to think that with Joe Milton at quarterback, who had 14 incompletions of his 34 attempts this week, not good, and also just didn't look good against a Florida team that got torched by Utah's backup quarterback who couldn't move the ball against Baylor." And I know the transitive property doesn't exactly work in college football, but it's a Tennessee team that should be blowing out Florida. Home, road, Florida's coach is going to get fired. He's not very good. He's bought himself time because Tennessee pissed down its own leg. 29-6, not only did Tennessee lose, Tennessee got beat handedly at Florida and only put up 16 points with Joe Milton at quarterback. Jalen Wright, Jabari Small, like we were supposed to see a balanced running game and passing game from the Volunteers. We have seen none of that to this point. They have been disappointing. And look, I get it. Earlier this season, they beat up on Virginia to open the year. Guess what, guys? Dono, you mentioned Virginia's just bad. It's just a really, really bad football team. And Florida, to a certain extent, also pretty bad. What we've seen from the Gators. And you know, not only did Tennessee lose, they did not compete against the Gators. That's a bust for me, 100%. We got time for one more boom for each of you guys. Let's lean on the positive here. Adano, give me another boom for you.
I'm stealing Kenton's thunder, and maybe he stole mine because Penn State is a massive boom for me for all the reasons that Kenton talked about. I don't necessarily think their game is going to be very exciting this weekend, but this is a ranked matchup for them. They're favored by 2 touchdowns against Iowa. If they don't cover this week, it'll probably be because they get so bored playing against Iowa. But Penn State has been a massive boom for me so far.
All right, Kenton. Now let's diversify here. No more Penn State talk.
Yeah,
You're another boom for you.
Another boom. I got to get this guy his guts. I give credit where it's due. I thought that he was a lifelong defensive coordinator, but he's showing his behind as a head coach in year 2. Brent Venables, come on down, baby. He is out there doing it at Oklahoma right now. And they're playing.
Whoa. This is boom, not bust.
Yeah.
Brent Venables is a boom?
Yes. Listen, I know most people don't.
I know beat Tulsa?
I know most people don't want to believe me here. I know most people have this team saying, hey,
I am most people.
This Cincinnati team not only can, but will pull off the upset here. I think Brent Venables gets this one done. Now, I'm not going to make this my level 18 lock. Now, I ain't going that far. But I think that Brent Venables has this team playing inspired. He's now drawing up those exotic, crazy blitzes that you saw at Clemson again. That is giving offensive coordinators nightmares. And to think, if you can give an offensive coordinator in the Big 12 a nightmare, you got to be doing something special because that's a defense is optional type of conference. And yet that team has whooped the wheels off of pretty much everybody's been in front of them so far this season. I've got to give them a boom because I think they get it done against Cincinnati.
Okay, can I go with a bonus boom because I wasn't here last week?
How many booms are we going to have here?
I just need to give a bonus boom. This is not going to be because Miami beat Bethune-Cookman last week, but I wasn't here last week to talk about Miami's excellent showing, Tyler Van Dyke's excellent showing against Texas A&M. That's the only real team Miami has played so far, but they have been more complete than I expected. Offensive line statistically grading out as one of the best in the country. Tyler Van Dyke so far, who had a really bad year last year for a number of different reasons, is actually the Pro Football Focus leader through 3 weeks so far in the season with a 94 grade. They've been tackling a lot better. Still going to be a few more weeks before they have another serious opponent because they have Temple this week, bye week, Georgia Tech, and then North Carolina, which is going to be a huge test. But Miami's been booming so far.
Boom. You nailed it for me. My added boom. North Carolina. North Carolina has a chance to do something it has not done since I was born. The Tar Heels have not been 4-0 since 1997. I wasn't even a thought. And they got an opportunity to do it this week. We're not talking about UNC enough. Obviously, this is a team that has, in the last couple of years under Mac Brown, made some waves. Sure, they've struggled against App State, which everybody seems to do right as a Power 5 team. But we're not talking enough about top 20 North Carolina, who can make some noise in the ACC. Right now they are a boom to me, a sneaky secret boom that could end up in the top 10 here in a couple weeks if they're to win that game, Dono, against Miami. Oh, you guys hear that? That was my doorbell. My DoorDash is here, Dono.
Well, I hope my DoorDash is going to be here soon, guys. Missing that syrup on your pancakes, or maybe you just ran out of your favorite coffee creamer? With DoorDash grocery delivery, you can get what you want right when you need it, folks. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites. Now you can get grocery delivery that actually delivers too. With thousands of grocery stores to choose from, you'll find the best in your neighborhood and boost your local economy with each and every order. And if you want even more value, you can save on all your grocery and restaurant favorites with a $0 delivery fee on all eligible orders with a Dash Pass membership. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to $20 value when you use code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout. Limited time offer, terms apply. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Don't forget, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for 50% off your first order with DoorDash.
Now, I know what you're thinking. They went and nationalized my Locked On show. You're sitting there, you're watching Locked On Ole Miss as we speak, and you're thinking, where is Stephen Willis and who are these three guys? Well, this is Locked On College Football Kickoff live every Friday from 11 to 1 Eastern time with everything around college football. We take it on a complete wraparound across the entire game. Drake Toll from Locked On Big 12 alongside Kenton Gibbs of Locked On ACC and Wolfpack, and Alex Dono of Locked On Canes as well. Guys, as we get closer and closer to this noon hour, it is time for Sell Me Why. Ain't nothing but a heartache or a mistake. Sell Me Why this week. Michigan, 23.5-point favorites in a conference game. The return of Jim Harbaugh against Rutgers. The Wolverines host the Scarlet Knights. Here's Isaiah Hole to sell you why the Wolverines will cover that massive spread.
The spread for Michigan football in the homecoming game in week 4 to host Rutgers is Michigan favored by 24.5. Will Michigan beat the spread? This is Isaiah Hole from Locked On Wolverines. And I'm going to give you a reason why Michigan will beat the spread. And I have a couple here. The big one is Jim Harbaugh returns to the sidelines. Now, if you listen to any Michigan players throughout the week, they say it hasn't made much of a difference having the interim head coach as well. Jim Harbaugh's been away for the last 3 weeks. But has this looked like the same Michigan team? It really hasn't. On top of that, this is the biggest game so far of the season. I know it's Rutgers. But at the same time, we've seen Michigan kind of sputter out. We've seen the starters out from midway through the third quarter in each of the first 3 games. Now is going to be a time when you see Michigan put the pedal to the metal, cover the 24.5-point spread, according to FanDuel. Michigan has got this one in the bag, even though they have yet to cover the spread so far this year.
Wow. Michigan has allowed 16 points combined in 3 games, but they're playing a Rutgers team that has allowed 30 points combined in a much stronger 3 games. Rutgers has double-digit wins against Northwestern, Temple, and Virginia Tech. All those games coming at home. This is their first road test. Kenton Gibbs, are you sold?
I'm sold on Michigan covering this. Yeah, I honestly think the Fighting Greg Schianos haven't played anybody that's super quality so far this year.
Well, neither is Michigan, Kenton.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you that. But if I'm looking at these teams, anybody who's listened to me talk on these shows before, I always tell people before week 4, we're all taking shots in the dark and guessing. And if I'm taking a shot in the dark and guessing, hey, based on what I've seen so far, the little bit of information I do have, filling around in the dark, doing my best Stevie Wonder impression, I think that we're for sure going to get Michigan covered. Yeah, not just a little visually challenged, not blind. You know, need a little help every now and then. Not blind. But I think Michigan gets this done, and I think they cover. He sold me why. He sold me on this one.
Dono?
He didn't sell me, because if the way you end your statement is, even though they haven't covered a spread yet this year, that doesn't make me too confident in betting a spread this big. It's all about the margins here, Drake, because if it was Michigan minus 20.5 instead of 24, 24.5, I'd say, okay, they'll probably win it by 3 touchdowns. This one is too rich for my blood. Rutgers has run the football pretty well this year. They put up 254 rushing yards against Temple earlier this season. I know that's not Michigan, but all this to say, Michigan's going to win this game. I just don't think they win by that much. So I'm not sold.
Yeah. It reminds me of like the Indiana-Ohio State game earlier this year, where it's, hey, really, really good team that should obviously win against another Big Ten team that plays good defense and has an offense that runs the ball. We slow the game down. It's just tough to win by 24 points in the Big Ten, especially when Michigan's offense has been methodical at times this season. Looking at, Bowling Green, UNLV, and ECU, they're averaging around 32 points per game. That is not a lot in your cupcake non-conference. You're supposed to be lighting things up with an offense like that at Michigan. So maybe this game does end 31-14. That's a cover. That's 24 points we're talking about here. I'm not sold on Michigan, although one of us, Kenton Gibbs, is. How about this one? Utah minus 4.5 and climbing. This one is soaring against UCLA. Utah opens Pac-12 play tomorrow by hosting the undefeated Bruins in Salt Lake. Here's JT Wistersill to sell you why the Utes are going to cover 4.5.
The Utah Utes and UCLA Bruins face off in one of several top 25 matchups this week. So Utah's favored by 4.5 over UCLA. And if I was you guys, I would be all over taking Utah to win big in this one. Even if Cam Rising doesn't play, I still like Utah to win this one by more than 5 because of their defense. Utah has yet to give up more than 14 points in a game, and they've only allowed a combined 31 points through 3 games so far. And that's not just from playing a cupcake schedule. They've taken on Baylor, Florida, and even Weber State, who is an FCS team, but they're a top 10 FCS team. So this Utah defense is tested. They got a lot of returners from last season and a lot of really prime players who are ready to step up. The Bruins will be starting 2 freshmen, Dante Moore at quarterback, who will be making his first ever Pac-12 start. And he'll be doing it against one of the toughest road environments in the Conference of Champions, because this is a Utah team that is 28-2 at home going back to 2018. And the Bruins have not fared well under Chip Kelly going to Utah. So take Utah to win big in this one.
Wow. One host tells us his team never covers the spread. The other tells us 28-2 in the last 30 games in Salt Lake City. That is enough. I am sold. I think Utah is still the best team in the Pac-12 with consecutive championships until I see otherwise. Canton, give me Utah in this game to cover.
They're going back to back to back. This is not a Utah team to be trifled with or mess with. And for all the talk about Deion is personal, I think that Whittingham up there at Utah is doing the exact same thing, just in a much more quiet manner. This is a team that they're the Rodney Dangerfield of college football. They get no respect at all. And yet all they do is put on their best DJ Khaled impression and win, no matter what. So with all that being said, I think that Utah covers this one easily.
Dono?
Now I am sold. I think Utah covers. I will be interested to watch this game because this is where all the high school recruiting coverage comes in for me, because Dante Moore on the UCLA side, it's going to be a very big moment for him. His team is not going to win this game. They're not going to cover, but that's one of the more impressive high school quarterbacks I've watched in person in recent years. I think that kid's got the stuff. I don't think this Saturday is going to be his time. I think his time's going to come a little later.
We got a whiteout on Saturday night. The number 7 Penn State Nittany Lions, 14.5-point favorites over the number 24 ranked Iowa Hawkeyes in Happy Valley. Zach Seiko will sell us why the Nittany Lions will cover 14.5.
Hey, it's Zach Seiko with Locked On Nittany Lions, and I'm here to tell you why you should be betting on the Penn State Nittany Lions to not only win, but cover the spread against the Iowa Hawkeyes in the whiteout game. I got a few reasons for you, and the first one is that whiteout environment. Whiteout conditions in Beaver Stadium in Happy Valley, Saturday, September 23rd. When you have a whiteout game for Penn State, it's already a 7-point, 10-point advantage in favor of the Nittany Lions, so you give them an automatic 10 points to start when it is the whiteout game when it comes to the spread. And we know that this one is 14 against the Hawkeyes. The second reason here is revenge. Penn State has a lot of revenge on the mind here. As back in 2021, when Penn State and Iowa were top 5, they met out in Kinnick Stadium. Penn State should have won that game, lost Sean Clifford. They were up by double digits. The injury to Sean Clifford just derailed everything. And then they lost the game, and everyone was saying, all the Iowa Hawkeye fans and coaches too were saying that Penn State players were faking injuries. Not cool. James Franklin's definitely going to remember that. And the third reason is Penn State's just significantly better going into this game. The roster is intact. Iowa Hawkeyes are facing some injury concerns. They're going to be without their leading wide receiver and Luke Lachey. He's also their number 1 tight end. They're going to be missing their 2 running backs, their first and second string running back. They got to go down to 3rd on the depth chart, and a defense that is going to be feisty. They're going to blitz a Cade McNamara, who's not very mobile. Those are my 3 main reasons why Penn State gets it done. They win, they cover the 14, and it's going to be a fun whiteout, at least for Penn State fans. Anyway, subscribe to Locked On and Nittany Lions for more Penn State football content.
Me. Penn State beat Illinois 30-13. That is not covering. It's covering 14.5, but it's not covering against an Illinois team that's not near as good as Iowa. And in the Big Ten, again, it's tough to win these games by more than a couple scores. 24-14, 27-14. Once again, I am not sold on the Nittany Lions despite a whiteout. Let's take it to Dono.
If Penn State wins by more than 14.5, I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm not putting my money on this one, guys.
This is a good abstain, right? This is a good abstain.
This is a good abstain. It's like if they win by 3-4 times, would it surprise me? No. Am I willing to put my hard-earned money on it? No. Now, why I would lean to, Penn State winning this game by close to that number is, he talked about all the injuries on Iowa's offense. I just don't think Iowa's going to be able to score consistently. But then at the same time, with that zone defense they play, I think they're going to keep everything in front of them, and maybe the chunk plays won't be there for Penn State. So I could see this one being a little bit in the muck, so to speak, and not being that high scoring of a game. So all this to say, I'm not sold.
I'm going to say this, and I know some people are going to look at me and say, Kenny, you're talking out both sides of your mouth. You're reneging. I think he's selling us a lemon here. Yes, Penn State is my boom team. I'm not buying. I think that Penn State has control of this game from the start. I don't think that we ever think that Iowa is in it, but I'm not seeing covering a large spread here. I think that they, again, get control, maintain control, win the game handily to where nobody ever thinks that Iowa was really in it if you watch the game. But I think the scoreboard is going to say that this game was much closer than it actually was. I agree. Good abstain. Again, he's selling you a limit. He's selling you the Maserati with the Honda Accord engine in it. Don't do it. Don't buy it. This ain't a good bet. Hands off on this.
Well, and you know what? I did. This is a situation where, and I know we'll talk a little bit more about betting later. I'm not betting this number, but if I do one of those like fun lottery ticket parlays, I'm definitely putting the Penn State, just the money line in there.
Yeah.
If I'm going to pick like 8 winners and try to get crazy odds, because Penn State's going to win the game. I just don't know if they're going to win by enough.
Right. Well, you think about this again, Big Ten. This is a Penn State's in control 24-7 late in the fourth quarter. Iowa puts up a garbage time touchdown, and the score looks much closer than the way Penn State actually dominates, or even, again, 27-14 is not a cover in this scenario. That's why I can't be sold. I can be sold, though, on Ole Miss to at least give Alabama a run for its money, and whoever runs out at quarterback for the Crimson Tide. Let's go with Locked On Ole Miss to preview this game. Stephen Willis, welcome to Locked On College Football Kickoff Live. Ole Miss, Alabama. Ole Miss about a score underdog in this game against a Bama team that has been, they are middling themselves the last few weeks. What do you make of this matchup? Can the Rebels win?
I think if it's not going to happen now, when is it going to happen? If Lane Kiffin's ever going to beat Alabama and Nick Saban, this feels like the year, despite what Dono says. So we'll see exactly how that goes.
Now, tell me this, Stephen. In terms of why you say this is the year for Lane Kiffin, we know about Alabama's struggles and them being down, but you still got to sell us on why Mississippi is up enough, why Ole Miss and Oxford are up enough to get it done against Nick Saban in this group.
Oh, the answer is Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart, I think, is a low-key person that over the next 2 weeks could play himself into getting to New York type competition. Wow. He's 6th in the SEC in rushing. He is putting the team on his shoulders and winning games. He's the reason they came back against Tulane and just kind of boat raced them in the fourth quarter. It was his job on the offense. Now, if you look at this also, Ole Miss has not had a tight end. They've been without Trey Harris, their number one option at wide receiver, and Zachary Franklin hasn't played a down. So without 3 of Ole Miss's key weapons, Ole Miss's scoring offense is sitting 4th in the country right now, and total offense is in the top 10. So if you only just assume that this offense is going to get a little bit better, there's a chance for this offense to do really, really special things. Now, against Alabama, it's going to be difficult. I was just messing with Dono and everything, talking about them being a boom tape, but nobody would be surprised if a team full of 4- and 5-star players played like a team full of 4- and 5-star players.
Yeah,
that could happen any moment.
Yeah, and even though I did predict a Bama bounce back performance, at the same time, there are few things in life I enjoy more than watching Nick Saban lose. It's just there's something special about that. So my heart is certainly with Ole Miss this weekend. But with that said, you mentioned going up against a team full of 4- and 5-star talent. Alabama clearly has weaknesses. We've seen those already exposed this year. But what of Alabama's strengths do you worry about most? Where do you see the toughest matchups?
This is absolutely weird, but I'm worried about Jalen Milroe and the deep ball because if Ole Miss gives up explosive plays and Alabama can get this game into the 30s, Alabama's probably going to win this football game. If it's under 30, I think Ole Miss has the offense to pull this out in the end. Either way, it's going to be a coin flip type of game. It's going to be a 50-50 proposition up to that point. Ole Miss has given up explosive against Mercer, against Tulane, and they gave them up against Georgia Tech. If they give them up against Alabama, Ole Miss might lose this game. But if they can shore it up on the back end of the defense, and Pete Golding is returning to Alabama, Lane Kiffin wants to beat Lane Kiffin more than any other coach that he's ever gone against, so much that he's like quoting Taylor Swift lyrics to troll Alabama this week. It is a bizarre dynamic, but I think you're going to get the best of the Ole Miss football team. And Jackson Dart, low-key last year, Dallas Turner, they had that horrible face mask against him. He pushed his head in the ground. All of that stuff that actually got photographed and remembered, as soon as the Georgia Tech game was over, the first thing that Jackson Dart was talking about was playing Alabama.
Wow.
So that's something we should keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, Stephen, the fact you already said that you're afraid of Milroe is not what I had on my bingo card here. The kid that can't throw a slant, who can lob a ball 50 yards on the money, certainly brings an interesting dynamic into this game as he starts again for Bama. Do you think, Stephen, though, this Ole Miss team, with a win on Saturday, then wins the SEC West that feels so wide open?
I think they have a good shot. This is what I call a program game. And it doesn't necessarily matter that it's Alabama or they're down or anything like that. This is a game that it's time for Ole Miss to win this game. It's time for them to turn that corner. When coaches always talk about, hey, we are close to turning the corner. We are about to turn the corner. This is a corner game. So for Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels to start being taken seriously and relevant on the national scheme and in the SEC conversation, Ole Miss has to win this game Saturday.
Now, Stephen, you've had me on your show. We've talked Ole Miss and the explosives. We've talked Lane Kiffin and all the things. We've talked Lane Kiffin and how his name is always it used to be SEO fodder before Coach Prime came along. But I want to ask you one question before we get you out of here. Do you have your popcorn ready, brother?
Oh, I am absolutely fired up about this. And Lane Kiffin's been in rare form this week, by the way. It's been very low-key because whenever Lane's talking, he's been talking about how Alabama is the best football team that's existed in the last 15 years. And Bryant-Denny is the toughest place to play. And I think he said one of our players would be recruited by Alabama and all of that. But behind the scenes on Twitter, like I said, he's tweeting castles crumbling at Alabama. He's tweeting the score of the USF game at Alabama football. He is in rare form that way. And I think it's going to be really fun. And I do want to say this about Coach Prime. I do appreciate Deion coming into college football because Lane Kiffin was the coach that was rumored for every job that came open for years until Deion Sanders came into the league. And now Deion Sanders is coming up for everything. That's the first name that pops up. And I'm appreciative for the year off.
Oh, I love it. SEO, man. Stephen Willis, you got to find a way to mix Deion in with Ole Miss and throw out a YouTube video somewhere in there. It's a great thing. Stephen, thanks for joining the show this week and selling us on this Ole Miss Alabama game.
No problem, guys. Great show.
Coming up, we have Conference Confidential Part 2, and we also talk about coaches who are on the hot seat and brushing up on their LinkedIn profiles. Right, Dono?
Yeah, if you want to brush yours up, thankfully, Billy Napier gets the week off. He's not LinkedIn Billy this week, but these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. You add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile and spread that word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. You've got to try it. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, guys, I'm just reading this here, and it's Conference Confidential Part 2. We did the SEC earlier, and Harry Belafonte was an American singer, actor, and activist who popularized calypso music with international audiences in the 1950s and 60s. This is the same guy that sang that Deo. Deo. Wow, the Big 12 this week. Unbelievable slate of games compared to last week. And I have 3 big upsets. The biggest matchup to break down, BYU and Kansas this week. Kansas, a 10-point favorite against a team that just went on the road against an SEC squad and won in a top 10 attendance for that SEC team all time in a night game. BYU, the hot hand. Why would I not ride it? The Cougars get it done. An upset in Lawrence, Kansas. There's another big upset coming to town. It's the game that none of you will want to watch. I don't want to watch it. Which team wants to lose more? That's the one that will. Iowa State, Oklahoma State, 2 very bad football teams. Iowa State favored by 3.5, over under 35.5. If there is a local paint drying competition in your town, go to that instead. I have Oklahoma State upsetting the Cyclones as 3.5-point dogs this week at Jack Trice. And another big matchup to break down. There are a lot of them, by the way, so I can only pick a couple. I am confident. Oklahoma, the number 16 team in America, loses on the road to Cincinnati. OU does this. They win in the non-conference, then they play a team that should absolutely blow out of the water. They go on the road, they overlook them, and they lose. Remember, OU sub 500 last season. One of the biggest upsets that I have picked all season long. Oklahoma loses to Cincinnati on Saturday as 14-point favorites on the road. Cincy gets it done. Everything else, all fun and games. The Big 12 sucks right now. Hopefully they can do a lot better this week. And that's the goal, right? Watch on Locked On Big 12 later this week.
Dave Schultz with your Week 4 Sun Belt Conference preview. Big ball game, Marshall hosting Virginia Tech. Good for Virginia Tech going into Huntington. Ball game is sold out, and it is on ESPN2 this weekend. Marshall was a 7-point favorite. Now they're down to 4.5. It hasn't been aesthetically pleasing, but Cam Fancher, the starting quarterback for the Herd, is 8-1 as a starter. They were actually off last week. They've started the season out 2-0. Troy is hosting Western Kentucky. That also on national TV. That's on ESPNU. Trojans got TJ Jackson back. That may have helped them defensively against JMU, but they got Western Kentucky coming in, and Austin Reed can sling it around the field. Troy better be ready for the Hilltoppers. And then later on in the evening, you got App State heading out to Wyoming. The Cowboys gave Texas all they could handle for 3 quarters before wilting under the Longhorns. Really good football team. App State looking to start out the season 3-1. Be sure to head over to Lockdown Sunbelt for the full recap of the Georgia State Coastal Carolina ball game. Once again, I'm Dave Schultz with your Week 4 Sunbelt preview. Enjoy the football, everybody.
I'm Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, and host of Locked on HBCU, and conference play begins for the SWAC this week. Now, the conference is divided into two divisions, the East and the West, so it's only right that I give you a matchup from each of these sides of the conference to look out for this week. And they're very important. You have Prairie View versus Alcorn State. And to me, this is a matchup that on the West side will really decide, hey, who's going to be the team that comes out of this and plays in a championship game? It might not be either one of those teams at the end of the year, but with the way the West looks, this is the type of matchup that will be heavily impactful in potential tiebreakers, which is something that it really did come down to in 2022. Now, meanwhile, on the East side, you're looking at FAMU, who this is their division to lose. FAMU looks like the top dog, not only in the East, but really in the whole conference, and maybe the best HBCU on the FCS level. But they are going against one of the teams that I would consider legitimate competition, and that's Alabama State. Now, the Hornets don't have a great offense, but they do have an elite level defense, and an elite level defense can keep you in any game. If FAMU wants to really distance themselves and feel a little bit more comfort going throughout the rest of the season, and I know it's early, but if they want to feel that comfort, they need to defeat Alabama State. Losing this game will make things much harder for them, and it'll be a big feather in the cap of Alabama State and probably the biggest win for Eddie Robinson in his 2-year career as far as a coaching tenure. But I got FAMU coming out of this. Now, as far as Alcorn versus Prairie View, that's anybody's game. It's still early, and both of those teams have some big question marks, and this game will be one of the times when we have those questions answered.
Wow. Daylight come and we want to go home. Drake Toll, Kenton Gibbs, Alex Dono, Lockdown College Football Kickoff Live. That was Conference Confidential. One of the things that I heard from the super good-looking Big 12 guy is that Cincinnati's going to upset Oklahoma. And as we talk about our prove-it-week teams, guys, to me, this is a prove-it week for Oklahoma. Can they prove that in week 3, week 4, coming into conference play, that they can beat a team they're supposed to? Because we all know the Kansas State losses they've had the last couple of years. They had a 6-7 season last year. This OU team, Brent Venables, they need to prove me something, even as 14.5-point favorites at Cincinnati, the same team that lost Miami of Ohio but won on the road against Pitt. Cincy, Oklahoma is a game that I have my eye on, and I do think Cincinnati pulls that one out. Who needs to prove something to you this week, Kenton Gibbs?
I mean, I agree 1,000% with you, and I hate to piggyback off you, but number one, I've got some inside sources that tell me that the Big 12 guy, he's wearing a toupee. The hair really is. You know, I heard this was three ball guys.
He hasn't gotten a haircut in weeks. It looks the exact same every time, and I don't understand it.
I'm just telling you, it's fake. It don't grow, baby. It don't come out his head. That's why. But that's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there. What we do need to talk about is I 1,000% agree. I just beat the table and said that the Sooners were one of my boom teams. Well, Boomer Sooner, time to show up, baby. Time to do your thing, because if they don't show up in this game, if they win this game by even a field goal, now there are questions. Now there's, are you this good? Because we saw you struggling against SMU. SMU now is technically a Power 5 team, thanks to some finagling and some haggling with the ACC and all that good stuff, thanks to some money that we don't know where it came from, but they raised a couple $100 million over. I wish I could raise a couple $100 million that quick. Just give me $8 million. Just give me $8 million. I'll be all right. But in all seriousness, Oklahoma has to prove something to the nation. And honestly, they got to prove something to themselves, because everybody said Lincoln Riley left and he took all the music with him. That was the day the music died, friends. Well, guess what? It's time to prove to us that the band is still playing down there in Norman.
Dono, prove it to me.
I'm going to go a little farther off the beaten path, because so many of these teams in big
Georgia
games
State
talked about it. Not quite. But I'm going to go with North Carolina. They are heavily favored in a tough place to play. They're on the road at Pittsburgh, and I know Pittsburgh is off to a worse start than anyone expected at 1-2 on the year. But North Carolina, to me, at number 17 in the country, undefeated, covering a 7.5-point line. It's not going to be a cakewalk for them, favored over a touchdown up there in Pittsburgh. And, you know, they have to show us that they can play consistently well if they're going to try to climb inside that top 15 after this week. And, they had a little bit of a rocky game against Appalachian State. As Drake mentioned, they give every Power 5 every year trouble, but some people were a little bit down on North Carolina after that. I think they have an opportunity if they can win comfortably on the road against Pittsburgh, because any ACC fan knows that's not an easy place to win. North Carolina can really prove us that they belong in the top 15 this week.
Guys, one of the teams that I still think needs to prove it, and I'm sure you won't disagree, that'd be the Georgia Bulldogs. You think, right? This has got to be the week they play a good team. This has got to be the week they have a big matchup, because they've been double-digit favorites, 20-plus favorites every week, even against South Carolina. And they struggle against the Gamecocks. They obviously beat the brakes off of Ball State and UT Martin. And this week, they get the mighty UAB Blazers. That's that SEC schedule for you. Georgia has not played a prove-it game yet. And at this point, what do you need to see, Kenton, from the Bulldogs moving forward? Because they get Auburn in a couple weeks, Kentucky, Vanderbilt. I mean, this schedule up and down is one of the easiest in the country, especially for an SEC squad.
Well, in the words of a light-skinned young man with cornrows from Canada, I need to see domination, badness, combination. I need to see all of those things from Georgia. I need to see nobody come close. I talked about this with Notre Dame in terms of if they lost to Ohio State this week, if they went forward and dominated, they'd be just fine. With Georgia, you're looking for a team that has to dominate. They cannot have Georgia's prove it is not one game. They have an entire season. They've got to prove it every single week, because all of the teams that we thought were going to be good on their schedule. Joe Milton, Bazooka Joe. It is a bazooka, but guess what? Bazookas have a large explosion radius, meaning you don't have to hit your target directly. Just get in the area. And unfortunately, close don't count in football. So, yeah, Bazooka Joe is a very fitting nickname there. But in all seriousness, this Georgia team has to show up and show out every single week. They can't take a week off and all of a sudden UAB sneak up on them and surprise them, because let's just say that was to happen, right? Mm-hmm. Let's just say that is to happen. They lose to maybe one or two of these teams that are, mid at best. Do they get into the playoffs? We haven't seen a 2-loss team get in the playoff yet. So why would Georgia be the exception?
No. And Dono, let's go through the next couple of games for them. So UAB, obviously a win. At Auburn, they'll be double-digit favorites. They'll win that game. Kentucky at home, double-digit favorites. They win that game. Vanderbilt on the road, double-digit favorites. Not till you get to that game against Florida do they really get what some would call a test. Florida got jacked by Utah. Then Missouri at home, double-digit favorites. Then Ole Miss at home. That's when things might get interesting. You already mentioned how Tennessee and the end of the year with Georgia Tech are both games that are disappointments. There is maybe one game on that schedule where Georgia's not favored by multiple scores. Dono, I just don't. This schedule's not preparing them for this schedule should not keep them from Atlanta, and it certainly shouldn't keep them out of the college football playoff. This is Bush League.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia's been so bored. I don't know why their players are always in a hurry to get everywhere. They're racking up all these speeding tickets. I think that's the big thing. They have to show us they can honor the speeding limits.
No,
guys,
Dono, no.
Georgia, they haven't been challenged to this point. We don't know if Carson Beck is a big-time quarterback yet. There's so much we need to see from this team.
This man said the Athens Police Department is the only team that can beat Georgia at this point.
So far,
only one can stop them. Only one thing can stop the dogs. That's the law enforcement. Oh, yeah, I think, Dono, you hit the nail on the head with Carson Beck. It's like, do we buy or sell on him? It's too early to tell for that guy. They took care of business against UT Martin and against Ball State, but South Carolina, they really struggled in that game to the point where there was a spot after halftime, actually, where South Carolina had a 62% chance to win that game. I mean, they were not just squarely in it; they were in control for a portion of the game against Georgia between the hedges. And now again, they don't get tested against UAB. They might not really get tested the rest of this season, depending on how good Ole Miss looks down the stretch. Maybe Tennessee can put it back together. But to me, I look at Georgia and I see a team that I think, all right, I mean, yeah, they're not as good as they were last year or 2 years ago, but they could walk to a college football playoff appearance with how down. I mean, we talk about how down the Big 12 is. Guys, give me one dominant team in the SEC. Can anybody tell me but at the same time, give me the dominant force in college football. We are missing a big dog for the first few weeks. We are missing the team you go, shoot, they've proven it so far, and they look legit week in and week out. Florida State could have been that. And then that Boston College game. Maybe Texas could be that, but they were almost tied with Wyoming in the second half. I'm waiting for the team that says, all right, we're them. And I don't see it yet. Kenton, Dono, do you disagree with that? Have we seen somebody rise above the crop here?
I mean, with all due respect, and I know that people are going to look at me crazy when I say this because they haven't played anybody so far, but you can only play who's in front of you.
Yeah,
the boys with that big block M on their helmet have looked like gods amongst men. They have destroyed everybody who has
defensively especially. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, defensively, offensively, nobody has come close. And I think that that's the most interesting thing about it, because we all know Harbaugh's not a defensive coach. Like, as much as you think of his teams as physical in the trenches, that's where they're going to win the game. He was a quarterback. He is an offensive mind that doesn't get the credit because his offensive mind works in a way that he draws up a trap and an ISO that look exactly alike and are going to get your 3 technique way up the field in order to make that thing work. It's hard to get so deep in the X and O's on you.
I have no idea what any of that means. Yeah.
Don't worry about it. You ain't the only person. But the reality is very simple. I think Michigan getting Harbaugh back is much bigger than most people think it is. And I think that team is the bullies on the block this year. It's just that they haven't won a chip yet, so people can't give them the credit.
And they haven't played anybody and it goes back to my point. I do believe Michigan is a college football playoff caliber team. They beat Ohio State this year. They probably run the gauntlet in the Big Ten. But to this point, they haven't played anyone. Who is a team that has played somebody and won a big game and then has just dominated and taken care of business? Again, I think Florida State's a team you make the case for until the Boston College debacle. So, I mean, give me one team, and maybe it's like a Miami who's kind of hidden down there still that has beat Texas A&M, beaten a Power 5 squad. Dono, I don't know yet who is going to be. Like, if I had to pick a national champion today,
maybe Michigan today.
Yeah, I think today it might have to be. But again, what have they shown me this season against legitimate competition? They will. They haven't yet.
I think it's made these first 3+ weeks a lot more fun, right? Because so many years we go into it knowing, like, hey, a lot of years you can predict your top 4 before the
Alabama,
season even starts.
Clemson, Ohio State.
But this year it's like good luck. And I also think it's, and obviously, the super conferences haven't been consummated yet, but with all this talk about conference realignment and super conferences, it's great to see like that the SEC hasn't been looking that great so far. But it's just interesting, right, for the college football storylines, and the ACC has looked a lot better than expected. And a lot of folks think they're kind of being left behind in the super conference race. So I'll enjoy it while I can, because are we going to be having the same conversation 4 or 5 weeks from now? Probably not. I think we're going to have a better idea who the superpowers are. But for right now, I'm enjoying it.
What if we see a Florida State, Penn State, Utah, and Texas college football playoff? All 4 of those teams are squarely in the conversation right now and have the schedules to do it. If Georgia slips against 2 teams, they already have a bad schedule. They're out. Bama already, it looks not good. I don't see anybody in the West going to the college football playoff. Georgia's the only playoff team in the SEC right now. And if they slip up somewhere, it's got to be somebody else who hasn't been a perennial. Clemson's down. Ohio State, to me, is down. We could see 4 teams who are not used to being in this position being in the playoff at the end of the year. Penn State leading the way, like you mentioned, Kenton. Obviously, Michigan right there as well. But there's a legitimate chance to get some new names, some new bloods in the new era of college football competing for a national championship, which I think would be great for the game. Kenton, I see you're chopping the bit with something here.
Wouldn't that be so zany for the last year or 4? Wouldn't that be? I remember when the playoff first started and everybody said, look at the FCS playoff. It's North Dakota State every year. That's who wins it every year. If you do it in the Power 5, you'll get the same thing. Bama every year. Bama. Now look at them. They can't even find a quarterback. They can't find somebody that's going to throw it and hand it off. Well, what a great time it is to be a college football fan. Again, when you think that things are at their most boring, if you truly look around the college football landscape, there is beauty all around you. There's excitement all around you. There is storylines all around you. Miami's got an 8th-year tight end, an 8th-year guy that still wants to seek a 9th year.
Yeah, he's applying for a 9th year. Hey,
what are we doing?
Every damn punter in college football is like 32 and from Australia. Everywhere, like it's not even rare anymore. They're all that way.
And let me tell you something. We got more Aussie punters than anybody could have ever imagined.
Yes.
A rugby game doesn't see as many Australians punting that thing as we've got in college football now. but it's the nature of the beast. It's fun. It's exciting. Look at how many matchups we're getting where quarterbacks are going to their old teams. You've got Brennan Armstrong headed to Virginia tonight. You've got Phil Dracovic, who I believe Pitt plays Boston College this year. I could be wrong there. But you've got multiple quarterbacks. Cade McNamara in Michigan. You've got multiple quarterbacks that are going back to their old spot thanks to how the transfer portal works out. You've got DJU up there in Oregon State. Was he not the problem or what? It's so many great storylines. And so if you want to ignore that because there is not a top dog, you're missing out. The loss is all yours, brother, because there's a lot of great football going on right now.
And we haven't even, there are more viewers than ever. Deion is certainly a big part to thank for that. And again, Kenton, you missed one that's huge for Washington State and Oregon State. They're playing for the Pac-12 championship, the Pac-2 championship this weekend right now. And so that's added a different filament to this as well, where we see a new era of college football that is yet to begin. We know it's coming, but it's yet to begin with. It's our last year of seeing the game as it has been for the last couple of decades.
And speaking of the new era, they're talking about potential relegation between the Mountain West and the Pac-12 or the teams that are left. You know what I mean? In the words of Tupac Shakur, all eyes on me, because there's going to be a lot of eyes on potential relegation, especially with super conferences forming, where all of a sudden you get a tier 1, tier 2 thing, or you get the group of 5 becoming the tier 2 where y'all can bump up. You win, you get in the playoff, you could bump up, worst team bump down. How would that affect college football? There's so many exciting storylines going on that, again, if you're saying to yourself, well, Deshaun Watson ain't walking through that door, so this ain't as fun. We don't got a Jameis Winston and Kelvin Benjamin, so it's not as fun. Well, we don't. If you're saying that to yourself, you're wasting your own time. That's on you. Every year is not going to have a Reggie Bush and a Matt Leinart. That's not going to happen every year. Enjoy what we've got while we got it, because this is a special time in college football.
100%. Guys, we definitely have to get into one of the wildest parts of the game every week. That's the coaches that could very well get fired any given week. But first, Dono.
Well, first, you got to get in on the action at FanDuel, my friend. Snap into NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So many college games, great games on the slate as well. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose, when you place that $5 bet. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, you hear us talk about them every week, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, which are so much fun, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Guys, who needs to update that LinkedIn this week? Because I'm looking over at Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy, who just lost 33-7 to South Alabama. And a reporter said, Mike, how did your 3 quarterbacks, he's been rotating 3 quarterbacks. They said, how did your 3 quarterbacks, how did they grade this week? And Mike said, they were all pretty good. 33-7 to South Alabama. Mike Gundy has waved the white flag. He's given up, and he's ready to go. That LinkedIn is not only being brushed up, he has completely revamped that thing. Mike Gundy is my hottest seat this week. Dono.
Well, I mean, you got to look at Josh Heupel at Tennessee, right? I mean, after
do you?
Listen, man, if trends continue like this, that team didn't tackle. They look pretty light, and I don't want to take away from Florida because that was a big win for Florida. But that's one of those where it's like you can praise one side and also bash the other one a little bit. That was a pretty eye-opening loss there, guys. And listen, I've said this before on the show, and I'm going to say it again. Depending on how this Saturday night plays out, I'm just saying Dabo Swinney, if he knows how to use a computer, he might want to start sprucing up that LinkedIn profile if things don't go very well for him at home against Florida State this week.
Well, if he does, and Kenton, I don't mean to interject too much before you roll in for yours. If he does, Baylor might be calling. What a cultural fit between Dabo Swinney and the Baylor. But he could go there, doesn't have to worry about NIL, doesn't have to worry about the portal. He can go 8-4 every season, 7-5 if he really feels crazy, and live out the rest of his career at the private Christian university. I'm not sure that Baylor will fire Dave Aranda at the end of this year, but oh my gosh, you get 8 home games and go like 3-9, which is what they're on track to do, then that's going to go very poorly with the administration And this team won the Big 12 championship, Sugar Bowl, a couple years ago. A lot of coaches in college football will set the standard. They'll set their own standard, their bar too high in the first year or two. Somehow they win with the other guys' kids, and then they come in and they crap all over it. Aranda staring down the barrel of that. Dabo Sweeney with phone in hand. That could be an interesting development as the season comes along. But Kenton, who is brushing up their LinkedIn for you?
Oh, it's got to be Jeff Hafley. I know that, out there in Boston College, that man, he's calling Ohio State right now. Hey, Ryan Day. Hey, big head. You got an opening on your staff. But the problem is there's another guy whose seat is getting a little warm, potentially hot. If Ryan Day loses today, Ryan go tell him, hey, brother, I was calling you to see if you had a job on your staff. We twin them right now. We the Spider-Man meme. I'm pointing at you, you pointing at me. We both need jobs. What's going on? Very seriously, Ohio State is one of those schools where 9 wins a season ain't enough. 10 wins a season ain't enough. The occasional playoff appearance ain't enough. It's not enough there. Ohio State, if you're going to be at that school, you need to beat Michigan. And you need to win you some national championships.
Yeah, 100%.
Ryan Day has not done either one of those things in recent memory. And if they lose to Notre Dame, then that, I believe, squarely puts them in that territory of how good is Day at big games? And of course, Hafley is the exact opposite of what you were talking about. You talk about guys having success in year 1 and 2, and then all of a sudden falling off a cliff. Let me tell you something. Hafley has been free falling since the day he took the job. The man has been struggling since the day he's looked in over his head. He has sold everybody that he's talked the talk. Every year he's the winner of ACC Media Days. People hear him and they get jacked up and say, oh man, he's going to be great this year. He's going to be something special this year. 3-9, 4-8, 2 wins. That's just what it's looking like. So.
Yeah. I mean, and there are free-falling coaches like Jimbo Fisher who had it was a good year. He had a Final Four finish, I think, in the COVID year that everybody's kind of thrown away. Well, I'll give him that, but mostly for him, it has been a lot of bad. He didn't have to set his own expectation. A&M fans were going to set that for him, and now he is square. He's got to get fired. I mean, he's got to get fired at the end of this season. And guys like Brent Pry, who we don't talk about a lot at Virginia Tech, he is likely done at the end of this year as well. Another one of the big ones that I circled, though, that we haven't mentioned on the show, Tom Allen at Indiana. 10-win Indiana, we're all excited about how this team's been so bad for a long time. Reminds me a bit of Matt Campbell, just less tenured, where it's bad program, tough to win. You did it early on. You show people flashes of what the program could be. And then if you can't finish the job, Dono, you're going to have to go.
Yeah, no, it's tough. And I'm glad that, you guys brought up a couple of others like Hafley. It's like at the same time, I don't know what the expectations really are there with the way things have been going at Boston College. But then at the same time, it's like all those boneheaded penalties at some point that reflects on coaching. And like if they'd committed a few less penalties, they might have just upset Florida State last week. It's like the state of things there. Yeah. So it's crazy.
Yeah. Ken, are you still firing Butch Jones? Because last week we really went after the man.
Let me. I'm trying to be civil about this. I don't want us to lose our clean rating. Butch Jones, don't fill out a LinkedIn. Don't update your LinkedIn.
Oh, no.
Go retire, brother. Go retire. You have made your money. You have done this for a while. You have done this at some huge programs. You have signed yourself some major contract. Your kids don't have to work if they don't want to. Go be a great dad. Be a family man. Be a family man, okay? This ain't you. This ain't you no more, Butch. You don't have it in you. You don't have the stuff. I'm sorry, Butch. It's over. It's done. It's done. People talk about what is the standard at different programs. Arkansas State has perennially been at least middle of the road, if not better, as a group of 5 team. And you got there and getting blown out so bad, you're crying on the sideline. Brother, I'm all for supporting people's mental health. I'm all for understanding these athletes and coaches as whole human beings. And sometimes what a whole human being needs is time off from their job. And sometimes the job is a little too stressful. And this job is a little too stressful for Butch. So Butch, go home. Go sit on your porch. Get the little rocking swing and all that. Sit with your old lady. Pour some Arnold Palmers up. Have yourself a good time. Do a little analyst work. You know what I mean?
Yes. Those are the best jobs.
We'll give you a call at Locked On. Ask your boy Mac Brown how much less stressful it was when he was in the studio as opposed to coaching. Listen, come on with us. We'll have you on every week.
Exactly. Do the Dan Mullen. Just
there
call it. Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen was like, "Yeah, I'm not. I'm good. I'm good." Like South Alabama calls Dan Mullen. He's like, "I'm just gonna be an analyst. I'm not gonna."
I'm good where I'm at.
Know yourself. Know yourself, Butch Jones.
Exactly.
Know yourself. Be a cruise ship captain. Do something fun.
Exactly.
Speaking of fun, guys, one of my, I think maybe the most fun segment, one of my favorite segments. Both of us were remote for this one too, so it made it very interesting. And it's that time of the week. Our main man, the grand poba of Locked On, our Locked On College president. We run the biggest stories with Zach Blackerby on the Blackerby Blitz. Donde SL Blackerby Blitz. It's right here on Locked On College Football Kickoff Live. Zach, let's go through the biggest headlines in college football this week. Oh, no. Guy makes big hit on the sidelines. Travis Hunter takes a cheap shot. He had a lacerated something, and Deion said, don't try to kill a guy. What do you make of this whole deal?
Yeah, I mean, I love that Deion's standing up for his player. I love that Deion Sanders was the first guy out there to get into the face of the guy that hit him. I mean, as a coach, you got to make sure your guys don't do that. I mean, I know that was a very emotional game and both sides made it super personal, which I love. It was incredible and people bought every second of it. The highest viewership of a college football game so far this year, freaking Colorado State. It's wild.
At midnight, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so the passion's there, but as a coach, you've got to make sure your players don't do like stuff that can actually hurt people. Like I get doing whatever it takes to win the game. But man, Travis Hunter's a big part of what this team does. So I'm really, really interested to see how it moves forward. But as far as the hit itself, there's no place for that. It doesn't belong in this game.
It used to be here. 20, 30 years ago, you could probably get away with that. Old school football. Today, for the better, we have taken that out of the college game.
Sure.
Zach, Nick Saban, as I'm sure you are very upset about, took odd shots from Lane Kiffin that weren't supposed to be shots, where Lane said, hey, he demoted his defensive coordinator. Just, you guys didn't know that. What did you make of the whole Kevin Steele, who a lot of Auburn fans know, this whole Kevin Steele deal?
Yeah, Kevin Steele, I think, was a good defensive coordinator at Auburn. I think he was a good defensive coordinator when Auburn hired him away from LSU. There was excitement throughout the program. I'm surprised Kevin Steele's not working out at Alabama, because the main thing he did at Auburn was he said, okay, we're going to play base and we're just going to be better than you. And if he could do that at Auburn, I feel like you should definitely be able to do that at Alabama, where the corners are consistently better, when you have better pass rushers and linebackers that can cover so much ground. I don't think he's a great scheme guy, but I think he's a great motivator and he's a really good recruiter. That's why it worked at Auburn. So I'm a little surprised it's not working at Alabama, but also Nick Saban's under more pressure now than he's been in a hot minute. And that's saying something with the amount of pressure that he's built up at Alabama. So I guess I'm not super surprised, but I did think it was a home run hire when they added Kevin Steele this offseason.
Pretty odd that it took an opposing head coach to alert the media that a guy had been demoted on Saban's staff. Don't see that every day. Zach, relegation is a new fun word we've learned this week in college football about how maybe Cal and Stanford, the ACC, and then sometimes the AAC, and then I don't know. There's a lot going on with it. I think the Big 12 should be relegated to the FCS. We call it a day.
I don't know about that. I mean, relegation's a fun topic until you get into the details of it. Mm-hmm. And when you get into the details of it, it's like, there's no way this can work. There's no way that unless every D1 school gets together and creates an organization separate from the NCAA for football, it can't happen. And we all know that's not going to happen.
No, it's not. Relegation would be it works for the Europeans and their soccer deal, but not for.
But it's set up for that. They 100%. Built it with that in mind. I don't think you can do that with something that's already created.
Couldn't schedule for it. You can't. You can't schedule a year. 6 months in advance. There's no way to do it. Do want to give a big shout out to the Dartmouth family, Buddy Tevens family, legendary college football coach, winningest all time at Dartmouth, multiple Ivy League championships, who passed away after a bike accident. So heart goes out there here on the Black Review Blitz. Zach, and in other big headlines across college football, this is the big one. Auburn and A&M, who wants to lose this week more?
Yeah, hopefully A&M wants to lose more as I cover Auburn. But no, we're going to learn a lot about the SEC West. I mean, the SEC West traditionally is the best division in college football. And with Alabama and Ole Miss playing and Auburn and Texas A&M playing, we're going to learn a lot about the division that's not the best division in football this year. I don't think. I mean, it could be proven wrong over the course of the year. But, yeah, I mean, this game, it's about, I think both Hugh Freeze and Jimbo Fisher, they have pressure on them in different ways, right? Hugh Freeze wants to say, okay, I made it back to the SEC after being in the wasteland that was Liberty for so long. And Jimbo Fisher wants to stay here, right? Jimbo Fisher's got the moniker of being maybe the most overrated, definitely the most overpaid coach in college football. And he's got an incredibly talented roster that's not that good of a football team. Are they better than Auburn? I don't know. We get to learn that on Saturday, but it's going to be fun. I think there's a lot of storylines about this game that impact a lot of things. Because look, if Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M lose to Auburn on Saturday, there's no way he survives this year. There's no way.
That's Zach Blackerby, the Blackerby Blitz. Zach, thanks for joining every week.
Hey, love you a long time, buddy.
I love you too. A lot. You guys weren't supposed to see that last part, but I'm glad the editors kept it in there.
Tom is crazy. That's crazy work. That is just insane.
That was the most
work.
enjoyable part. Now, I mean, I love the Blackerby Blitz, but the love fest at the end, man, that's what keeps me going. True love.
He's a good boss.
My innocent eyes cannot see that again in good faith. But proceed, Drake. Proceed.
Dono.
Okay, we're talking DoorDash, I guess. I'm so happy that we've partnered with, you know what? I have a love fest with DoorDash. If you love the convenience of getting what you want right to your door, with DoorDash grocery delivery, you can stock up for the week or order last minute cravings conveniently. That's usually my go-to. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites, and now you can also get we're not supposed to be a DoorDash. I don't even know what we're doing here, but I want to talk about DoorDash anyway. You can find the best in your neighborhood and support your local economy with each and every order you make. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to a $20 value when you use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at checkout. Limited time offer, terms apply. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Don't forget, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for 50% off your first order with DoorDash.
Oh, nicely done, guys. We've hijacked the show today. The editor is going to be so happy in post. Look, as long as we're all having fun, right?
We're getting fired. In the words of Beyonce, kill the light, somebody get fired.
It's nice working with you guys. I've enjoyed it. Let's at least...
For the producers, it's personal. This is personal for them.
It's been an honor playing with you, gentlemen.
Oh, guys, this week we don't have locked on bets because here's what happened. They won. They finally won a bet on our show, and they hung it up. They know when to leave the blackjack table. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, and they have folded this week. Though I hear they were very high on Georgia State last night. Those guys were. And
they covered, right?
They did cover the blocked out. They got that one right. Too bad it wasn't on the show for them to count. But we will give ours here, our best bets of this week. Dono, give me your A1. What is your level 18 lock on College Football Kickoff Live?
Oh, I try to dig deep for these guys. And one of the big things that I look for as someone who not only enjoys playing the spreads, I like to check weather reports. Okay. Now, this one was an obvious one for me because I cover Miami. Miami's going to be playing tomorrow afternoon in Philadelphia at the Link against Temple. They're going to be having like a tropical cyclone that's going through. So assuming the game actually starts as scheduled and they're playing through potential torrential downpour at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. I'm looking at the over-under 46.5 between Miami and Temple, which was 50 as recently as yesterday, which means the sharps are going way in on the under. I'm still comfortable taking under 46.5 just based on how the weather's going to be, because that's going to affect yards after catch for both teams. That may affect catching footballs. It's going to be a run-heavy day, I would imagine. And with those new clock rules, that's just going to give less time to score more points. So I'm going to go under 46.5 Miami and Temple.
The real KG, what say you?
I'm going to make this easy because me and Donald both being a little lazy this week. We go with games that we are covering, that our teams are playing in. I'm going to take NC State over Virginia. I believe the line is 9.5 right now. Let me give you a fun fact about Virginia. Under Tony Elliott, their average score when playing a Power 5 opponent is 31-15 their opponent. 6 of their last 10 games.
Have we talked about him getting fired, by the way?
Here's the thing. With everything that happened with the tragedy and all that, I think that bought him another year, whether Virginia fans like it or not, whether we like it or not. You kind of can't. Like, it's a tough situation. And Virginia's known to give coaches very long leashes. For my women basketball fans out there, Tina Thompson was there thinking it up for a hot minute. But that's neither here nor there. The reality is this is a team that is dead last in the ACC in total offense, dead last in the ACC in total defense. And somehow an NC State team that, while they have their flaws, is in the upper half of the conference, is only expected to beat them by 10? I think not. I think that this one, NC State handily covers that. And that is my level 18 lock, baby.
All right. I got a couple of them here. I am privy to FanDuel. It's my favorite. It's how my Saturdays kind of peeled back the curtain. So I do the Baylor football pregame show. And after I do the show, I have about 2 hours between Baylor kickoff, between that and Baylor kickoff. So I go to FanDuel and I do an extensive research on these games. But all through the week I'm doing research, but I'm playing them on Saturdays. And this week I've already circled Florida State -2. Look, guys, we've mentioned I don't think Florida State wins by double digits, but they definitely win this game.
But by the way, Drake, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm looking now at Florida State -1.5. So that's closed up even more.
Yeah.
Yes.
So has NC State Virginia. It's down to 7.5. Take it.
Wow. What are we
Take
doing?
it. That's free money.
Yep.
What are we doing? I mean, at some point, Vegas has to lose, right? And it is uncanny. You would be a madman to say, oh, yeah, Vegas has no idea what it's doing. I mean, if the lines are always so close, I don't know how they do. I don't know how they put it together. So you got to learn which lines to and to not play. So I know a lot of people are on Clemson right now. I'm going Florida State -2. Until they really show me that they can't keep up with a legitimate Power 5 team, I'm going Colorado. I'm going to ride Colorado. 21.5 is too much. They might lose this game by 17. They might win this game as well. I'm going Colorado plus 21.5. Ole Miss plus 6.5 is on my card. It is absolutely on my card. I think Ole Miss wins this game outright because I still do not trust Alabama. They benched a kid and unbenched a kid and didn't work with their second string or their third string. That is as disastrous as it's been for Nick Saban since 2007 at Alabama. So it truly, truly is rotating through 3 quarterbacks and losing to Texas at home. Then Notre Dame +3. And again, this is a money line game for me. I think Notre Dame wins against Ohio State this weekend. I am not buying Ryan Day. I am buying Sam Hartman. I am buying Marcus Freeman. They are in the playoff conversation. Give me Notre Dame to win outright. Those are all 4 on my board this week. And then maybe my biggest pick. This is my level 18 lock. Did you know the BYU Cougars just went on the road, OTR, to an SEC opponent in a night game and won over Arkansas, KJ Jefferson. And they are 10-point dogs against the Kansas Jayhawks this week. What are we doing? Wow. Double-digit dogs, 2-score dogs against Kansas. Now, I get it. It's not your grandma's Kansas. This is a good Kansas team. The offense is great. The defense has gotten better. This BYU team won on the road in a night SEC environment. They're going to march into Lawrence, Kansas, not just cover 10. They're going to win outright by maybe 10 points themselves with Keaton Slovis and that defense. Give me BYU, level 18 lock of the week plus 10, sprinkle on the money line. Boys, let's make some money.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I love the Notre Dame pick as well, by the way. I think they're going to win that game outright. They're going to.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, everything they've shown to this point, and Ohio State has looked just okay with McCord at quarterback. Fellas, before we get ourselves out of here, that word that we've mentioned a couple times this show, but have yet to really unpack, is a relegation. Kenton Gibbs, when you think about the Premier League, which I do not watch, where some soccer teams that are good get to go to the next level into a new league the next year, and the bad teams go down a level, and then they work out scheduling from there. Is there any way to make this thing work in college football?
So here's the thing. I think that this would take a massive effort by multiple teams and parties to make this happen. However, it's the Mountain West and the Pac-12's only hope for national relevance.
Yeah.
The teams that are still there, it's your sole hope. Who else would really care that much to see Boise State play Air Force? Who else would care that much to see San Diego State play Wyoming?
Even Fresno State, like that's a big game. But most years those two teams are good. I'm not watching it.
But what does that mean? It's Pac-12 at midnight, right? We're watching that game. We're staying up at 2 a.m. for a non-Deion Sanders game. I beg your pardon. On a Thursday night too, on a school night. Dono's got to take his kid to class. What are we doing here? What are we doing? So with that being said, I don't think that like in a normal circumstance it's easy to work that out. However, if that's your only draw and play at like, this is our last clean hope. We've seen what these conferences will do when they get desperate. We've seen conferences add teams that don't make sense because it's like, this is all we've got. This is all we've got to do. This is all that our hands can play. And I think that relegation system would make it immensely more interesting over there, regardless of who's playing. Because now you're not just playing, we're not just talking Fresno State versus San Diego State for who's going to win the conference championship. We're potentially looking at Wyoming and not BYU, Wyoming and who's a bad team out of the Mountain West? Help me out here.
Oh, wow. Nevada.
Wyoming and Nevada or UNLV Nevada for who gets put into that second tier. Now we're talking. Now, even though that game is not going to be enjoyable to watch, you want to watch it because somebody's going to get relegated and somebody's probably going to get fired because of their relegation.
Yeah, Dono, you same wavelength here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually a big European soccer fan, and the promotion part of it is great for business. The relegation part of it, though, they need to do some serious study on that because then you're basically telling everyone we're not in as valuable of a conference or brand as we were before. That's why professional American sports, pro sports, they all use a franchise model. There's a reason why they decided not to use the Premier League European soccer model of promotion relegation because always being guaranteed to be one of 32 in the top tier. It's just better for business. Okay. So that's, you have to weigh the cost benefit analysis of this, guys. And I'm not sure if the novelty of promotion outweighs the financial implications of relegation. So I think they need to put some serious study into this because, again, there's a reason why. And obviously, European soccer has been organized a lot longer than any American sport, but there is a reason why the NFL, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball do not use a promotion relegation because there is a flip side to that. Relegation being in the second tier is not good for business.
Well, to me, it is the idea of student athletes, mental health, student athletes. 1 year you're in X conference, the next year you're in X conference. How do you recruit with that? And on the other side of things, how do you plan travel? College football can't plan travel.
I even thought of that. Great point.
6-7 months out. And now we're in a completely different conference playing a ton of different teams. And what do we do if football wins? Football belongs in the Pac-12, but cross country doesn't belong in the Pac-12. Do we only scale relegation on football? How do we have that? How do we open that conversation? So there are too many ins and outs of this from a recruiting standpoint to mental health and athletes and travel and affording travel, being able to pay for it because Wyoming can't pay what Washington State can pay to travel in a relegation system. There's not enough time in a relegation system to build scheduling. It is impossible to do in college football. We will never see it in college athletics. Guys, we're running out of time here, though. I do want to get your one big take for this weekend. Kenton Gibbs, give me one sentence, one take, 30 seconds. What's going to happen?
Notre Dame proves who they are this week, one way or the other. We find out exactly who Notre Dame is this weekend.
Boom. Dono.
Clemson shows us they are no longer the Clemson of the past 10 years. Hate to see Florida State win, but they're going to do it this week comfortably.
Cincinnati. Whoa, those Skyline Chili boys at home, 14.5-point dogs against Oklahoma, a team that was below 500 last year since he went to a college football playoff, coming against a loss to Miami of Ohio. Of course, they're supposed to lose by a whole lot, but they don't. Instead, they win it outright because Oklahoma is fraudulent, as they have been the last couple of years in their first game of conference play. Cincinnati on top. Locked On College Football Kickoff live on top. Drake Toll, Kenton Gibbs, Alex Dono. Thanks for making us your lunchtime listen every single Friday on Locked On College Football Kickoff live.